Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Batman number 0. This is part of the New 52, and from what I understand, when they released these 0 issues, it was supposed to tie into Scott Snyder's year 0 that he was creating at this time, because that was the next arc. And this book's okay. The main story is alright. I kind of like what they were trying to do. Then there's a backup story written by James Tynion, which is cool, but there's problems, and we'll get into that here in a second. But let's go ahead and dive into this. The print date on this book was November 2012, I believe. So kind of old, sort of now by today's standards. And it opens up with this bank kind of reopening, remodeling, restructuring. And there's a joke about coffee, but it doesn't go for too long, so I'll give it a pass, because it's just the manager trying to kind of ease everybody, saying, haha, you're not going to get grounds in your teeth, la 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 la. But where the book picked up for me is in the last panel. They're talking, and then all of a sudden it goes, knock, knock. And then you flip the page, and it's the first appearance of the Red Hood gang and Red Hood 1 from this time, which is kind of one of the villains from year 0. This book is called A Bright New Yesterday. This is, where is everybody? Scott Snyder writing, Greg Capullo penciling, Jonathan Glapion inks. Where's the rest of them? There they are. FCO Placencia doing the colors, Richard Starkings and Comic Crafts, Jimmy Bentecourt doing the lettering, and there's everyone else working on the book. And then, of course, it says here, Batman created by, it's Bill Finger with Bob Kane. Now, the joke is, knock, knock, who's there? History. History, bang, you're dead, you idiot, because you forgot me. So you can just see the lethalness of this guy and the sociopathic tendencies that he has. Now, the bank teller's trying to saying, how'd you get in here and all this stuff? So there's a way that he gets in that's kind of interesting. And then he says, Red Hood 5, take him down. And he just cold cocks him upside the skull. And as you notice, the, what is that called? The clip comes out of the gun while that's happening. He goes, damn skull broke my gun. But this is what I like about Red Hood in this case is he notices something's off. And so he's telling Red Hood 5 to take his helmet off. And he goes, I also noticed that Red Hood 5 is left-handed. So he knows that this is not his henchman. And he's like, all right, because you kind of find out that this is not the gang leader. And so he just goes, you don't have to hurt anyone in here. Hurt anyone? Look around you, man. They're all dead. We poisoned the cake yesterday. So this is a cat that you do not want to mess with. This is someone that has no regard for human life. So kind of spoilers at this point, we find out that this is Bruce Wayne trying to infiltrate the Red Hood gang. And this takes place 6 years from when the New 52 kicks off. And so he's not necessarily Batman yet. He's using the tech, but he's not Batman yet. And from what you read here, and this is probably my biggest gripe with the whole book that I was talking about, is there's a lot of dialogue. As where, the show don't tell, there's a lot of standing around and talking. That opening scene was awesome. The chase that I skipped over is great. But then just kind of like, But here you find out when Bruce came back from his walkabout after his parents died, he's moved into their brownstone, which is kind of the apartment in the city. And Bruce's like, this is home, Alfred. Not just this brownstone. And Alfred's like, apologies, but I haven't given up on the manor, as you seem to have. So this right here kind of reminds me of the Denny O'Neil era, where when Dick Grayson goes off to college, Bruce closes up the mansion and moves into Crime Alley, into the penthouse there. So I think that's kind of a nod at that point. And Bruce is talking about how he's like, I'm not good enough yet. I have the tech, I have the weapons. He's like, I should be able to wage this war without anyone know I exist. But something's missing. And so from there, you want to see more of the Red Hood gang. You're like, oh, come on, come on. But what happens is it kind of turns into a conversation between Gordon and Bruce. And at first he's on the rooftop throwing this, not batarang, because it's not a batarang yet. What are those called? Boomerangs. And it's like a timer one that'll come back to him. So this kind of turns into, in a sense, kind of a cool ticking clock, because as the countdown for the boomerang to come back to Bruce is ticking, Gordon's just like, I'm going to have a smoke here. We need to have a chat. And, Gordon, this shows how smart Gordon is, too, because he's like, you come back from your walkabout, you have this cozy manor, yet you want to set up shop right here in the middle of a crime alley where this vigilante is taking place. And if anybody is aiding this vigilante, them and their whole family will go to jail. Now, Bruce always kind of plays it as a cool criminal, as I like to say. But, yeah, that's kind of how the rest of the book goes. And you're just sort of like, there's a lot of talking. But the forgiving part is the opening scene with the Red Hood gang. That was awesome. Now, that's it in terms of this story. There's something that happens at the end that kind of sets up the next part in Batman 24, which we will eventually go over. But yeah, what does he want to blow sky high? Read the book. Now, the next part is called Tomorrow. It's written by James Tynion. Andy Clark's the artist, FCO Placencia doing the colors, Patrick Brauso doing the lettering, and there's everyone else working on this book. And what it is, it takes place 5 years later. So the first part was 6, this is 5. So at this point, Batman has come on the scene. And so Gordon's getting ready to do something. He's talking about the very fact that I'm standing here and the other decent civil servants are staying to rise up. It's all because of the one man, the Batman. So Barbara's talking about, well, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, well, what are we talking about? I don't want to give that part away where I'm not going to skip it, because the end is very poignant, and I like the way that they kind of bring everything together. But what happens is they talk about Tim Drake and how he's just about as smart and or smarter than Bruce Wayne, so we follow him. We talk about the rough streets with Jason Todd. And then we have a moment where, what's it called? Dick Grayson is part of the Flying Graysons at this point, and how even though he's not Robin at this point in history, he still knows what's right and what's wrong. So at this point, I want to close the book here because the ending is really interesting. It just, the only thing that really kills it is there's not a whole lot of action. Like, there doesn't need to be a whole lot of action. Like, it doesn't need to be like a whole Michael Bay thing. But there's a lot of dialogue boxes, and that's what kind of bogs down the book. Like in the beginning, when the Red Hood gang is chasing Bruce, there's quick back and forth between Alfred and Bruce, because he's trying to get away from him because the Red Hood's figured out that this is not his gang member, and Bruce is chastising himself, saying, you jumped into this too quick. You should have taken your time. Stuff like that is interesting because it moves, the book moves quickly. Now, if it's going to be a heavy dialogue, then there needs to be like some sort of dramaticness going on. Like kind of like the Killing Joke, for example. But anyway, still a good read. First appearance of Red Hood 1. Something you really want to have in your collection. And as I said, the James Tynion, the way that they kind of reintroduce all of our Bat family before they became part of the Bat family, the ending really hits you and you're just kind of like, wow, this is awesome. So yeah, I give it a 7 out of 10, just because the dialogue's a little much. So with that said, if you guys have enjoyed this book, please, first and foremost, check with your local comic shop, see if they still have this in stock. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little bat bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified and come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, I hope y'all continue to have a bat-tastic day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.